Hello, welcome to the Family Life podcast brought to you by the International Missionary Society University Campus Fellowship. My name is Mlenga. With me here is Sister Enes, who is our Family Life Department leader at the University Campus Fellowship, and we'll be having an exciting conversation with her today. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm okay, Mlinda. How are you and how are your viewers?
I'm well, thank you. So there has been a conversation regarding sexuality education across the world, and this is a topic that Zambia cannot run away from. It's a topic that the church cannot run away from, and I think you did an excellent job of making an introduction of that in the last episode. So building on from that, I think the first question we need to ask is, do children really need to learn about sexuality?
Yes, so the answer to that, Mlenga, is yes, children need to learn about sexuality, and we are talking about comprehensive sexuality, and I know that there are a lot of definitions out there, but in my own definition, comprehensive sexuality is where you're teaching a child about sexual life continuously. So comprehensive meaning at each stage you introduce a new thing to them. So for example, if you're teaching a 2-year-old child about sexual education, you tell them about their body parts, and when you look at a 2-year-old, they are excited about being who they are, they're excited about discovering a lot of things, and as parents, I will quote from one of my favorite authors, Ellen G. White, who says it is a responsibility that parents take up the front row in educating children. Even sexual education, we should take it up. Why? Because as parents, we are the first teachers, and if children get things firsthand from us, it creates a very good space for us even in future. And also parents, you know, when you have children, whether you like it or not, they will know about sex, they will have sex. So let us teach children, but then there is also a counsel on age appropriate information that you give to children. So it is important and children should be taught.
Absolutely. I like that you have touched on quite a number of issues, and it begs the question, a child who is about the age of 5 years or below, how do you go about introducing sexuality to them? Because they are clearly exhibiting behaviors that indicate that they are sexual beings, but how do you now relay that age appropriate information, like you mentioned, for someone who is about the age of 5 or below?
Yes, so a child who is 2 years old, when you tell them don't touch the candle, they will not, because they know that it will burn them. So the same way we are teaching them about ABCD, the same way we are teaching them about memory verses, the same way we are teaching them about a lot of things, we should also teach them about sexual education. But how do we handle a 2-year-old? So for example, you are telling them about their penis. For example, if it's a boy, most children who are 2 years, when they're in diapers and you remove a diaper, you agree with me that they are excited about it and they don't want a diaper anymore, and they want to play with their organs. So you tell them you don't play with your organ in public, it's not hygienic and all that. And then when you go to maybe they are 3, 4, 5, you are creating boundaries.
Yes.
So you are teaching children no one should touch you. And you as a parent, by the time a child is 4 years old, you should have taught them how to clean their private parts. So create that boundary. No one should touch you. You should not touch your friends. Those are bad manners. You should not sit on people's laps, and you should not play with other people's private parts. So there you are teaching them that they should own their body. There are certain bodies that no one should touch them. Someone can touch your hand, they can shake your hand, but they don't need to touch your private parts. And I think there was a video on Facebook that I saw where early childhood teachers were singing this song, these are my private parts, no one should touch it, no one should see it. I thought that was cute because if teachers are teaching and you as a parent, they know that even mom says that. Yes. So sometimes when I'm bathing my children, I'll be like, what are you supposed to do here? They'll be like, no one should touch me. You have said that so many times. And I'm like, okay, at least you know. Yeah. And sometimes children are annoyed if you keep saying the same thing. But the fact that they have heard it from you, I think it creates a good platform for both the parent and the child.
Absolutely. So one thing I find very fascinating about what Sister Ines has said is that she has named the reproductive organs by their names. And I believe that is something that is encouraged, is it?
Yes, it is, because sometimes we are using names, like, no, this is Edoyo, for example, yes. This is John and whatever, and sometimes we're even using people's names, which is not appropriate. The way we say these are our eyes and the like, if children think their body parts by their names, even when they learn in class, when someone says something, you see, the first time I heard about the word sex was in grade 8. And when they said that, everyone laughed, and I was the only one. And then I was like, why are you laughing? Why? Because we are not used to this. Yes. So we need to make sure that you call things by their names. Yeah. Absolutely. Or body parts. So
I think that is very profound and practical wisdom that any parent or guardian should make use of, because if sexuality education is already being taught in schools and even at early childhood education level, it simply means that there is no time that is too early for you as a parent to be the first reference point when it comes to information over this very sensitive topic. So, Sister Ines, how did you initiate the first conversation that you had with your children about sex? Because I imagine that there are a number of parents and guardians out there that might not be entirely comfortable with bringing up that topic, or they might feel it's too awkward. So, could you give some hints? How did you go about it in your own parenting journey, and what means or methods can help parents out there also begin to have that conversation with their children?
Okay, so if you want to, I know that sexual education is a very difficult conversation. Even when children are adults, you will not just say things the way they are. You'll be like, if someone is going out, don't bring pregnancy here. Why? You have never even told them to say, if you sleep with a boy, this is what happens. You just have assumptions that they have learned, okay? So build a foundation. So we have talked about starting early. Yes. So you are building up. For example, so we were at 5 years old. When a child is 6 going to somewhere at 12 years, here there are a lot of body changes that are happening. Yes. So as a parent, you have to prepare. How am I going to speak to my child when they reach this age, when they reach puberty? Because even themselves are surprised that things are increasing, they are having hair growth and the like. So myself, because I started early by saying, don't do this in public, when my son was 3 years old, he would refuse anyone to bath him unless me or the father. Why? It's because they've learned that no one should see their private parts. Okay? And it helped in a sense that when he's now 10, he's not even comfortable me going in the bathroom maybe, and sometimes I would be like, don't remove your pants, I just want to maybe help you bath. So right now there are a lot of questions that will come now. Yes. Mom, what about this? So I have prepared myself, because here where we are going, children normally don't ask questions. They don't want to trust their parents, and they trust more of their friends. Yes. So right now, I have to start talking about issues like masturbation. How do I talk to my child about it? Tell them you're not supposed to be playing with your private parts. You are not supposed to sit on someone's lap. If someone is touching you in a way you're not comfortable, please make sure I know. Even if they say, if you report, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
Just come and tell me. I'm more powerful than that person. And I also read somewhere on, I think on Facebook, where someone was saying, you see, sexual education should be taught, and also children should be taught, especially girls, how to defend themselves. Because one day I was on a bus, and then I sat next to this big man, and he was busy touching me, molesting me. You get my point. And that child had to sit there for like 30 minutes until they embark, surviving. And most of the time, even right now, there's a child at my school who was murdered, and I'm sure if you investigate, you'll find that maybe it was a sexual encounter that happened. And if a child says, I'm going to report you, the child will definitely be killed. So we need to create this space where we teach children not just about sex, but in a case they find themselves in a situation, they need to find a way to survive. For example, that one who was on a bus, there were a lot of people. That child should have shouted.
Absolutely.
And that child would have been rescued. So creating a platform, a rapport with your child is number one. And then constantly talking about certain things.
Absolutely.
And in movies, when you see that this is not correct, make sure that you talk about it and
Yes.
mention why it is not correct. Yeah.
That is very, very, very profound. I think something that we need to understand is that children are learning about sex, and the world is more than willing to teach them about sex, except the world has a very demonic agenda. And if you leave your children unaware and unable to access the right information, you're leaving them vulnerable. So a child that is aware, a child that is given the tools and the information that they need, is a child that is able to defend themselves, and a child that is able to cry out for help. So that is very, very important. And I like the fact that you mentioned that you need to set the platform and create a somewhat of a tiered system where you build on from the foundation that you have started. So what you're starting now with your toddler, with your 5-year-old, is going to build on to what you'll be dealing with when that child is now a preteen or a teenager. And even as they proceed into adulthood, you will have had a track record and somewhere to start from. And I also see from what you have said, Sister Ines, that the talk, as we popularly know it, is not supposed to be an event. This should be a day-to-day communication, so that we remove the awkwardness and the taboo nature of issues regarding sex. And that brings me to the next question, which I do think that you have already touched on, but maybe you could just emphasize: how can Zambia as a contemporary society make sex no longer this taboo topic, but something that is honorable as God intended it to be? Because I think a lot of people shun away from discussing sex because it's been this thing that even saying the word is almost unacceptable and it's very uncomfortable. But then we are a contemporary society. If children are not going to get information about sex from their friends, or if they ask you as a parent and you're not willing to give them the information, they have access to your phone. Or they might even have their own phone and they might Google that, and who knows what they run into. So if we are to remove that taboo mentality regarding sex as a contemporary Zambian society, how do we do that?
Yes, so the first thing is, as Africans, the most thing that will kill us so much is our tradition. No, we are changing our tradition. This is not who we are, and all that. And then we sometimes stick to things that don't save us anymore. So how can we unpack this issue, especially when it has to do with sexual education? First of all, we have to relearn and unlearn. Sexual education is not a taboo, and for me it's just the pretense that we have, because if you are a girl in Zambia, when you are about 10 years, your mother will start teaching you about sexual education. So you find that young girls are prepared. there are these ceremonies.
Yes.
What are they about? They're about sexual education. But then when it's brought into the system that children should be taught, we are saying, we are changing, we are doing what? We need to relearn and know that whether we like it or not, children will still learn about sexual education and children will still practice sex. We have our tradition, we have Zambia as a Christian nation, but we still have teen pregnancies, we still have abortions, we still have masturbation, and all these put together, there's drug abuse that comes because children are frustrated, they're disappointed. So if we are to curtail all these vices that we're talking about, we need to adopt sexual education, and it's not a taboo. Children should learn. Even teenagers who are 13 years to 18 years, they are practicing sex. I teach grade 8, and believe me, they know about it.
Absolutely.
They know about sexual styles. They know about so much information, stuff that even you as an adult, you're like, where did you get this? In our time, we didn't. Why? Because they're able to access this on phones, and that's why I mentioned to say boundaries. When you're creating boundaries, a phone should be one of the things that you teach children. Children should not be touching people's phones, because in these people's phones, there is pornography, there is bad pictures, and also sometimes children rush to YouTube to watch cartoons, and as they are searching, maybe that is an adult who is addicted to porn, and maybe before they logged out, they didn't remove that, and your child is busy. Before they Google their cartoons, they have already seen that.
And been exposed.
Yes. And sometimes when they want to ask that adult will maybe abuse them. So boundaries should be created in a sense that they should not be touching your phone anytime, and they should also not touch adults' phones. These things are there. Cartoons is teaching about gender, about sexual orientation, and sometimes our children now will no longer be saying I'm a boy, I'm a girl. They'll be saying I exist. So if as a nation we stick to the old ways, by the time we realize, we'll find that our children are gone. So it's not a taboo to talk about sex. It's not a taboo to educate our children. It's not a taboo to re-educate ourselves, and that's why we need such programs where we can, how can I go about it?
Absolutely, that is very, very wonderful. And I think maybe a build-up question on that, just your quick thoughts. How do you think the church can come in making sure that we unlearn and relearn certain things regarding sex and not make sex this taboo even in the church? What role can the church take regarding demystifying and debunking misconceptions about sex?
Yeah, so, and I think as a church, we have started doing that, because the last family life week of prayer or month of prayer, we were talking about family identity. And when I read through, I knew that even sexual orientation was something that the church wants to emphasize, because there is this confusion. Even in the church, we have people who are asking, so if I transitioned, can I be ordained? Can I do what? So like the church is very strategic, but what we can do, we can use the children's department, for example, to teach children about sexual education. We can deliberately put these lessons, and also a coordinator at the district. These are some of the lessons that we have put in our programs to make sure that these children have a holistic information, or we have holistic approach in terms of how we deal with children, because sexual education is important. And even in our church, we have children who are going out of the church to have different friends, and sometimes they're becoming mothers at a tender age. So if we neglect and say no sex before marriage because it's a sin, okay, yes, it is a sin, but what other information should they know about it being a sin? Because sometimes they will see you sin. Maybe you said sex is a sin, but you are committing another sin. So there is more to sex or sexual education that we need to offer to children than just saying it is a sin.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is very, very wonderful and helpful information that you have given, and I'm glad to know that the church is working on that. So I think in your closing thoughts, could you give some recommendation of resources that parents that are embarking on this journey of imparting godly understanding and wisdom and knowledge regarding sexuality, what sort of resources can they make use of?
Yeah, so the first thing, as parents, we need to be studious. We need to study, we need to read books. And I would recommend Child Guidance. It's a book that is helpful. Mind, Character, and Personality. It is also a very nice book. It talks about how you can change your character, and sexual education is there. And there's also a book called Health Now. And I think in our description box, we're going to put links to these books and where they can be accessed.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for the information that you have given us. I think it is very helpful to myself and even the audience, and we look forward to having another episode with you.
Thank you, Mulenga, and welcome.
All right, so thank you so much for staying with us. If you have enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel so that you get access to more information as this. We look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.